everyone. Here we go. We have the next speaker up and running. Originally, William Whitecrow was going to be here himself, but well, an emergency came up. He could not make it, but he is still going to be with us. So I give you the Honorable William Whitecrow.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. The first thing I want to do is thank Louis Reinhardt and all his cohorts there that worked so hard to put everything together. It's really important to give that honor and that respect to these people, because they did work so hard to do everything they could, contacting the people, bringing Mikey Thompson-Jensen, everybody, getting everybody together. Just a fantastic job that they did. And so pretty much that's it. Now, all the other people that are there too, that are in the presentations, I want to turn around and thank them too, because everybody has a different perspective on these programs and everything that's going on. And it's good to have each individual out there turning around telling their story and how these programs and things affected them in their life and how they dealt with them. Mine is much different. I'm 62 years old. I was in these programs for quite a while and started very young. And because of that, I learned a lot of things and looked at life a whole lot different. That's why I'm more of a shaman now and helping people. And because of one individual, that's why I'm here, and I'll be honest with you with that. I hid from things for many years. I didn't talk about anything like that. My wife knew a little bit, but I never talked about anything to my kids or to my family or anything. I wanted to forget it. I'm going to be totally honest with you. But Andrew was very persistent, and that's who got me here, Andrew Bashago. And yes, I pronounced your name right, Andrew. I always have a problem with names sometimes. But anyway, he tried for a couple of years to get it from my place. I have a compound, all fenced off, doors, dogs, security, everything. And the reason I have that is because throughout my life I have been followed because of giving talks and doing things. My students have seen it, some of the patients that I work with in cancer and many other things. I work with people from mental illness to cancers to everything you can think of, diabetes, everything. But Andrew was very persistent. He finally got up here one year. And I just seen him walking through my gate with a mutual friend who can come up here and everything. And I looked out the window, the back window, and I seen him. And my wife is, "Who's here?" And I said, "It's the Mars guy." You know, and she kind of looked at me like, wait a minute, you know, this is back program days. We don't need this, you know, to a point. And just the look on her face told me that. So I turned around and went out and met him, and we started talking. And he recognized me. I recognized him right off the top. And he goes, "You were my instructor." And I said, "Yes, I was." "How you doing, Andrew?" So we talked all the times about the programs and jumps and all different types of stuff. And he brought up Mars. Of course, that's what I was expecting. And my training him before he went to Mars and everything. So we started talking about techniques and things of this nature. We just hit it off like old buddies, you know. And the gentleman that brought him up was worried because he knew immediately that we'd recognize one another, without a doubt. And what was going on, what we were talking about. And he walked away, and he came back later, and he literally asked me, he goes, "Am I going to be found in a ditch or going to have a car wreck or something like this?" I said, no, you don't have to worry about that. Our compound is pretty safe. Nobody knows anything except for us here. But before Andrew left, he had mentioned something. He had described an individual, a couple of individuals that were in the program, and my wife was standing behind me by the water tank. And as soon as he started describing one of these individuals, she broke down and started to walk away and everything, and I knew it was hitting her hard. She was worried that I was going to go back in the programs. Andy was there to get me, to talk me into going back in the programs. I had to reassure her that wasn't the case and everything, and she was okay after that. But then she started understanding more of the picture, which I never talked about that much. And that's what this whole presentation is about, basically. So if it hadn't been for Andrew, I wouldn't be here today. And I ended up going on a radio show one day in the chat room, and I heard Andrew talking. And he told me before he left he would never talk about what we talked about, anything. I said, "Thank you very much." It took him another year before I decided to say anything, and that happened on the show I'm telling you about. It was Truth Frequency Radio with Chris and Sheree Gio. And he was on the show there, and I was in the chat room, and I was trying to coax Chris and Sheree to ask some certain questions. because I knew a lot about Andrew's training and everything else. And they knew something was there. They knew we had a connection, but they didn't know what. So they told Andrew, I was in the chat room and everything. He says, I'd like to say what I know, but yes, William and I are connected. He said, but I can't say anything because I made an agreement with him that I wouldn't unless he says so. So between their coaching and, you know, Andrew, all the time that he had worked at doing his job and trying to get me to come out to talk about this to other people so everybody could really know what's going on there, and also backing him up in his, the things that happened to him during the times we were together, I decided to tell him, okay. And I'll be honest with you, I've never seen Andrew so happy. He was like a kid in a candy store, you know, because I finally decided to come out and he talked about our event, the training events and the other events that took place on Mars. And, you know, I'm going to be honest with you, since I've done that, I feel a lot better. It's like a giant weight has been lifted off my shoulders. And my wife and I have talked a lot now, a lot more open about things, and it's a good thing all the way around. So that's what, who am I? Let's get right to that point. My name is William Whitecrow, and this is just a picture of me and my little arch I made on the way to my front door of my house and everything. I love plant life and Mother Nature. And who am I right now? I'm a shaman, spiritual teacher, healer. I have a lot of students out there all over the world. I try to help people become who they want to be, who they can be, and help people understand who we are as a human race, as a species. And I think that's really important, because once we understand that, when we know that, then we're not going to have any problem with understanding these programs or understanding extraterrestrials, or as we call them, the program of the others. And there are several varieties, there's for sure. Exactly how many? None of us really know exactly how many, but we know that there are a lot of them out there. They're just not us. So I'm also a paranormal researcher and UFO investigator, and the reason I really got into that is because I wanted proof, physical proof, of all the experiences that I was having as a child. And so I really got into the paranormal research and UFO investigation when I was a young kid. I needed to know more. I seen too much. I knew too much. I didn't understand why as I go on in this presentation. I've been a radio show host. I came up with Summer Nights Radio, and I was there as a host to help them get the show going, and I left later on, but we talked a lot about this type of stuff. And I've helped host other shows with Tony Kudos and on the Truth Frequency Network there, just for short periods of time. But also I'm a personality, radio show personality. I've been on more shows than I can count, and a few TV show aspects and everything like this, interviewed numerous times about my experiences in life and everything. So talking about this and my experiences is not a problem. What I had to do is readjust myself, because I never talked about these other things. So I actually, notes that I had made way back then when I was in the programs, I kept my notebooks, because they don't allow cameras or recorders or any of the stuff in the programs. That's why I laugh at people. Oh, you got a picture of this or this so we can see it. Come on, get real. When you're working in limited access programs and everything, those things are non-existent unless they give you a camera to record an event taking place. And then it's immediately taken into the intelligence echelon, and they go from there. I'm also a Vietnam veteran, and spent basically almost 2 tours there. And that's where I really got into the programs heavily. And I will take this step by step, starting with my younger life a little bit, my experiences as we go on. I know now that there's not too many time constraints. I was a little worried about that because there's so much to cover here, but that's okay. I know that I have that now, so I can get into a little more detail, which is fine. Participant in limited access programs. Not only did everything happening with me start as a young child, my first experience was at 5 years old. And I'll talk about that later, but these limited access, they overlap one another. People have to understand teleportation technology, time technology, the reverse engineering technology, and technology we've been trading for humans, shall we say, is highly advanced, very highly advanced. And in the programs that I was in, what I did, we used all aspects of all these programs. You know, and it was just one of the things you have to do. It's so compartmentalized that I could tell you, I didn't know anything about the Pegasus program at the beginning. I did after a period of time, but I didn't know. All I knew is I used that technology to get from point A to point B when we were told, this is your mission, this is what you got to do, go do it. Okay, I'm also a survival instructor and martial arts and self-defense and an orthodox self-defense instructor, a skydiver and more. I love adrenaline, always have. And I think that's part of the reason that they like people like me. My education, I got my first associate's degree and everything. That was just general education. I wanted to know more. And I took psychology and everything. And really kind of, you know, okay, this is a field I want to be in. I did a little bit of computers. But when I was doing that, I thought I'll just jump that. I got my associate's degree.
Oops.
Then into the AI aspect of things, artificial intelligence. I got where I could write computer programs for specific individuals on their computer. I could put it there, and you didn't have to have a security program at all. When you turn around and you started working on that computer, the computer would interact with you and talk to you. And if you didn't answer the questions right, it didn't matter where you were at in your process of work or whatever, it would shut down, sound an alarm, and call security. So these are advanced programs, and I was really trying to get into the AI aspect. As far as psychology programs, my last one, I graduated with highest honors, 2-year program with highest honors because I was super good at that. The psychology aspect of the human seems normal to me. I will be using the term human a lot through here. Don't trip on that. Some people do. Oh, he uses the term human. I have to separate myself at times. So when I'm talking about something, I'm the observer, and that's what I do. Survival training was a natural for me. I lived on the reservation things, I hunted. So I learned from the best trackers in the world, Native Americans and Native peoples. When I traveled overseas, I learned from the Native peoples overseas in Viet Nam, Laos, Cambodia, and other areas, Thailand, things like that. So I'm a very well-experienced tracker. Emergency field medical training, we always did that. I was a volunteer firefighter, things of this nature. Flight training, I loved to fly even as a young kid, so if I could get on an aircraft, I learned all about the instrumentation, everything. And then, as we say here, tracking. Survival training and tracking really go together. Okay, let me go to the next slide here. My early life, as I said in the beginning, at 5 years old, I've seen 3 graves standing next to my bed. And we can have a question and answer period after this, no problem. After I'm done with the presentation, now that we have some time. I was 5 years old and I woke up one night and there was these 3 tall beings next to the bed. And I didn't know what they were at that time. Now I understand what they were. They were graves. Interesting thing, my wife also had the same experience at the same time, at the same age. And we're only 11 days apart in age, in different parts of the state. So that was very interesting. So that came up with another concept in my investigation. Do they put people together? Yes, they do. I found out over time that they don't follow all genetics, so pick families and family lines and stuff, but they don't just pick all humanity and do it. It's kind of like our scientists, they'll pick a sample of the population and they'll follow them for generations upon generations. Later on, and I'm older now, and I'm living on the Indian reservation with my mom and my brothers and stuff of this nature, and we always seen lights in the sky and things like this, and craft that would come down over the mountains, and you knew they were craft. And the Indians saying these are our brothers. So I understood at a very young age that there were other beings out there besides us that came from other dimensions, other off-world locations and things of this nature. During the time that I was living on the Indian reservation, there was a couple very close experiences that I had. One in particular was my house was here, my Aunt Audrey's house was here, and then there was about 1,000 feet away, maybe 2,000 feet away, a water tank up on top of a hill. It was about 50 feet across and about 4, maybe 5 stories high. And a craft came down in broad daylight, and it had this baby blue haze around it, really interesting. And even at that time, I thought, ionized atmosphere. I'm a very young lad at this time. Where did I get this information? That we get into downloads later on. But this thing came and hovered right over that big water tank. It is sat there. You could see the outlines of the craft, a perfect shape of a UFO, the standard saucer type that we all talk about, excuse me, in experience. And that thing hovered there. We were only about 100 feet from it. Next thing we knew, all of us kids, that 2,000 feet down the side of the hill, we all come running out of the brush in a straight line. I never really thought about lost time or anything. All we were thinking about, we'd go run into the house yelling UFO. Our parents came out and they just got a glimpse of this thing leaving. They couldn't really even tell because my wife and I talked about it with my mother. And they could tell something was leaving and looking it up towards the sky, but they couldn't tell exactly the shape or anything. So we had witnesses there, plus all of us kids that were there. That scared the daylights out of us. It did, even though I was always wondering, I wonder what it'd be like to see these people, and everything, And it was fictitious until that point in my mind, as far as I knew. After that, I turned around and moved to a ranch with my father. Left the Indian reservation. I wanted to go live with my dad for a while, so I did. He wasn't too far from our Air Force base. This is where my first major experience with the others took place. The funny thing here, I was able to feel them when they were coming, even before I knew there was any abduction or anything like this or interaction with them. I lived on a ranch with my father, and we raised horses and cattle, things of this. And right behind our house, there was just these foothills, and they had giant stones, giant boulders, bigger than houses and everything. And they were like fingers, some of them sticking up out of the ground. So we'd go back there all the time and ride our bikes and everything like that. So when they had the old Stingray bicycles and everything, and do our jumps and have a blast out there. You're away from your parents, you're having a good time. Well, I came home one day and everything was fine, doing the work, went to sleep that night. I went to go to bed that night. Before I could go to sleep, I felt something. And right across from my house, there was a big potato field. And to the sides of the house in the back was this foothills that I'm talking about. And I felt something. I kept looking up at the window, in my room. And I just couldn't stop doing it. I even got up and looked outside at the window across the road and everything into this potato field out there. And at that time, they just finished harvesting the potatoes. So I'm looking across there, and next thing I know, I lay back down and I look back up at the window, and all of a sudden there's something in my window. And it was one of these guys right here. Now, the jaw structure was a little wider, and of course it didn't have a flat chin because this picture just got off. Jaw structure was a little wider and everything, and when I put this picture up, my wife looked at it, she goes, that's exactly what I seen when I was a young kid at 5 years old. So there was more verification, we both experienced the same thing. Two different locations at exactly the same time. So that was quite interesting. These experiences continued on for the entire time I lived with my father on the ranch. And one experience, I had the feeling that they were there, and this was in broad daylight. And I turned around and went up in the back of the pasture and went up on some of these rocks to look over. And there was a round craft, saucer-shaped craft, a tall gray and two small grays. And they were just sitting there. As soon as I looked over the rock, within 15, 20 seconds, they all looked down. They looked right at me. And they looked back down as if, oh, it's him. And went right backward. In a short order, short period of time, everything faded out. It was like they cloaked themselves. And I waited there about 5 minutes later, then you see the bushes move a little bit, and you see a little bit of dust kick up, and I could tell, obviously, that they had left. After I left my father's place, during this time also, I had experienced another event, and that's seeing the earth from out there. That's the only way I can explain it. And how this happened, it was during one of the abduction periods. And I was walking down a corridor. At first I thought I was in an underground facility. Why I thought that, I don't know. And so it could have been part of a My Lab situation even then, I'm not sure. But I know that I was in this corridor going down, and I thought I was in an underground facility, to be honest with you. And as I'm walking, I see a little corridor off to the right. And I see 4 or 5 people sitting there, 5 people. There was a farmer, had his coveralls on. There was a nurse, like from World War II, dressed, and they're fully dressed. There was a little girl dressed in her Sunday best and looked like a school teacher, and there was another individual. And these people were looking at a wall that was directly opposite them. And this wall had kind of a color pattern going on it. They were sitting on this bench, really nice and straight, very proper, and I looked at them and I said, who are these? That's the first time I remember talking to anybody during this experience. I said, who are these people? And I heard a voice to the left of me. Well, I didn't hear the voice, it was in my head, and the telepathic aspect of it. And these are our helpers, and I just went, oh, okay. And I turned around like, I was fine with that. And I looked over, and he was a tall gray. And it was like, okay, and I just continued walking down the hall, put his hand on my shoulder, and there was no feeling of being controlled here at this point or anything at all. That was the interesting thing. So I walked with him down the hallway, and there's one of the little short suckers, and he was a darker brown color, and a lot of it, kind of like Whitley Strieber in his book Communion. He talked about the little short guys and everything. He used a different term and everything, little blue guys and everything. This one was a darker brown, almost a black, but you could tell it was a brown color. And I went with him, and the gray didn't go with me. So this was a time for me to be observed, I guess you could say, go through the process of being examined. And I didn't remember anything from that point on there. But later on, I was woke back up, obviously, and I'm standing in a control panel area. And there's a room, and there's two grays at the control panel. It kind of came like this and down like that. It was like this as I'm looking at it. A gray here, and a gray here, and a gray on standing right next to me. And then there was two humans over by this one wall, kind of separated by maybe about 15 feet. And I'm looking at them, and I got touched on the shoulder again, and this one gray just pointed at the window. It wasn't a portable window, it was more of an oblong type window. So I went over there and looked, and that's when I seen the earth. I actually got the feeling as if you're falling for a moment there. As soon as I looked out that portable and seen the earth, you know, my stomach and everything, my heart started beating kind of fast and everything, and I pulled myself together, you know, and I, you know, kind of dropped down just a little bit, maybe an inch or two, because that funny gut feeling, like you have a dream and you're falling, and you dream exact same thing. Then you wake up and it's a sudden shock kind of. So I looked out the window again. Interesting thing, as I turned around and looked back at everybody, they're looking at me except for the two that are controlling, you know, at the console. And he points at the window again, the gray. And the two humans were over there just looking at me. You know, they were kind of, not even a smile, just observing. And so I look out the window again, and I'm sitting there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes looking at it, and I realize the earth is getting smaller. And I'm like, okay, everything finally sunk in. You know, I've seen these people, I just got checked out, and now I'm here in control room. What is happening here? And I'm still a kid. You know, I'm not even a teenager really at this point in time. So I turned around and looked out the window, and I realized what was going on, and I walked away from the window back to the inn. Next thing I knew, it was kind of like I'm out again, and then when I come back to, we're going over terrain. And I had no idea at that time that that terrain was actually Mars. My wife and I went over this numerous times, and I've had, you know, 30, 40 years to think about this and go over it. And it was Mars, because later on in life, when I ended up going there, it's the exact same terrain that I was looking at. So I didn't know anything until later on in life that I understood what was going on. But I went back to the res after I lived with my dad, and traveled around for a little bit, went back to the res and just realized that, you know, I need to get out of here, I need to go live life. You know, I'm a young man, and I need to do something. I can't hang around here anymore. It's the energy of just being a young person and got to go out and experience life. Basically, that it was. But before I left, I was in a store in Ramona, California, and there was this gentleman in the store, and I explained he was, you know, 9'12". He was a big black guy and everything, and we're in the store, and I'm all fresh on the res, and I got a case of sodas. In those days, they were flat cases, not the carry-out cases that you have now, and some chips, and I was heading for the jerky. I was getting ready to leave the area, you know, I wanted to go somewhere different and everything, so I was storing up some supplies. And he walked over to me, and as he's shopping, he's got a few things, and he goes, "Hi, William, how you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm doing fine, how you doing?" And I've been to a lot of powwows and everything, so I'm trying to figure out how to use my name. And we struck up a conversation, going somewhere, huh? And I was like, yeah, definitely going somewhere. I got to get out of here. Can't just stay on the res and do the same stuff all the time. Even though I love the res, I love everything I loved. I love nature. I was just a young man. I had to go do things in life. And I was explaining this to him, you know, and he was talking, yeah, I remember the times, me too, you know. He goes, well, you know, I'd like to talk to you more, but we can talk later. I got to go. My wife is in the car. And he says, it's been a pleasure to meet you. We can talk later. By the way, my name's Simpson. So we shook hands, and he headed on over to the counter to get his stuff. I go over here and I grab my jerky, and by the time I come back around, get to the counter, he's getting ready to walk out. I put my stuff on the counter, and I knew the clerk, and everybody in a small town knows what I'm doing. And as I'm getting ready to pay for my stuff, I hear, "Hey, William." And I turn again, and I look at him. And he turns around and says these words. Says, "There are other things for you to do. You don't belong here anymore." And he says, "You take it easy, I'll see you later." And that was on a Friday. 3 days later, I'm up in Julian, California, which is the opposite direction, not too far from San Isabel, and Mesa Grande and all the other Indian reservations in the area, San Isabel, Rincon, Paula, all of them. And this was on a Monday, because I'd seen Simpson on a Friday, it was a weekend, and me and a couple of my guys always thought, "How did that guy know you? I don't recognize him from anywhere, you know, any of the powwows, any of this stuff, you know, for our adventures and things we went." And it was just strange. So in Julian, all of a sudden we were pulling in to get gas, and we're sitting in the vehicle, and I jump out, everybody, that's when you can ride the back of trucks, you know, without getting a ticket or anything. So we're gonna jump out of the truck and everything, and I'm gonna get ready to go in and pay for some fuel, because everybody else is paying for sodas, we can all share that way. And all of a sudden this Army car drove up. It was OD green, and you know, and it had a nice little star and Army on the inside and everything, and this guy gets out, and medals and shiny stuff all over him, you know, and he goes, "Hey, William, can I talk to you?" I didn't know this guy had it for me either, you know, and I said, "Well, sure." Now then, my friends are going, "Okay, this is the second time in 3 days, what's going on here? You need to find out what's going on." Because we're very cautious of people on the res. You don't do a lot of trusting of people off the res. You know your bros, you know our culture and everything, we stick with that. So I said, "Yeah, sure, okay." And he walked in the store, and we pumped gas and everything, and then I was walking in, he was walking out, and he goes, "I'll be waiting out here to talk to you." I said, "Okay, no problem there whatsoever." So I went in, got me some more jerky. Yes, I am a jerky addict. I love jerky, especially venison jerky. And so I'm coming out of the store and everything, and I go over and put my stuff in the truck, and he walks up, and we meet each other, and he goes, "Hey, how you doing? I hear you're really looking to get out of here, you know, and get some adventure in life and everything." And I said, "Yeah, I really am." He goes, "Well, a friend of ours, Sergeant Simpson, told me about you." And this was an Army recruiter, okay? He knew my name, everything like this also, and so did Simpson. Now I'm starting to get a weird sense of things, and he's talking about being in the service and not necessarily being in the service and doing the things everybody else does. You know, there are other programs, he said. And I went, "Okay, fine." He hands me his card and he says, "I'll tell you what, I can tell you're thinking about things. So when you think about things, give me a call." This was also on a Friday. So I thought about it over the weekend and everything, but before he left, he said, he brought in Sergeant Simpson. He goes, "Yeah, the Sarge told me." I go, "Sergeant?" He goes, "Yeah, Sergeant Simpson. You met him in the store in Ramona down the road here." And I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, just before he left, he goes, "William, I'm gonna let you know something." He goes, "There are other things for you to do, and you don't belong here anymore." Okay, two people telling me the same thing just blew me away. And my friends were going, actually they were literally going, Rod Sterling, you know, and I got this weird gut feeling, you know, I really don't know if I want to know more. But I really also wanted to get out of where I was. You know, I love my friends and everything, but I had to go. So Monday, I called this guy and I told him, "Hey, you know what, I thought about what you said, you know, and you know what, I'm game, let's do this." So he actually came up that day. He said, "I didn't need anything, just take some clothes, get myself a carry-all bag, put a few things in it. If I have a radio, camera, anything like that, put it in there," which I really had much. We were poor. And I turned around and waited for him. I had my clothes in a bag. He came up about 3.5 hours later and picked me up. I went and stayed 3 days in his house. After that, we talked all that time about all kinds of different programs in the military and things like this. He was indicating something unique to me. I was a young man who experienced a res in life here and there, but I was ready for anything and everything else. Fact is, I enlisted to go to Vietnam. You know, not one of these people that didn't want to go. I wanted to get out of where I was doing. I figured Nam was a good place to go. So at that time, I turned around and called him. There was 3 days. Next thing I know, after 3 days of being with him, I was at the induction center. We went through all the medical stuff and everything. Right after that, I ended up in Fort Worth, California. For California, within the first week, 2 weeks, you go into an area where you're isolated, you know, for in case sicknesses and everything. They don't want to put you out with everybody else. So our group is in our little isolation, you know, dorm, shall we say, and I was pulling fire duty and I'm mopping floors. And a week during that time when we go in there, I see a shadow on the door. And here's this 9'12" guy. Here's this time Sergeant Simpson is in full regalia, shall we say. He's in his uniform and he goes, "Hi stranger, how you doing?" And I kind of the lights on the door, so I step to the side and look, and I see it's him. And I go, "Hey, how's your wife?" And he just chuckled and he goes, "Sorry about that, you know." He goes, "But we need to go." I says, "I can't go. We're all under quarantine for the first 2 weeks here until we get, you know, assigned to a unit here in basic. And then we go to those nice buildings you see right there, the concrete ones instead of the wood ones. They were kind of cold at that time." And so I said, "Yeah, I'm going to get in trouble." He says, "This is already taken care of." So we turned around and ended up going to, he jumped in his car. And he put on Booker T and the MGs. And to this day, every time I've seen that man, he put on Booker T and the MGs. And I still remember the song. I'll never get rid of that song in my head. Then he took me to another part of the base where there was the wood buildings also, and parked the car and got out and said, "Come on, come with me." So I went with him and walked into he opened the door and I walked in, he walked in after me. And it was just a small little office room, and you could see it was a window, you could pull curtain. There was kind of a classroom over there. Nobody in the building at all. It was abandoned, basically. And there were 3 other individuals that were sitting there, and they had their khaki pants on. And this is my observation skills. One had a black belt, you know, on him, a regular dress black belt with his khakis, and the other 2 had regular military belts with a little slide brass buckle. They had kind of a sport shirts on. They had, all of them had their black windbreakers, as we call them. Windbreakers on, very clean cut, glasses on, all of them had glasses on except for one. And he was sitting there holding them in his hands, sitting on the desk. And the others were just kind of sitting in chairs. And Simpson goes, "Well, here he is." And I'm like, "Okay, you know, what's going on here?" And I said, "Well, we'd like you to just have a seat right here. We want to ask you some questions." And this is okay. And he goes, "I think Sergeant Simpson has explained different things to you about different programs that the military has going on, and it's part of the reason that you're here." Well, I figured, okay, this is something a lot of people go through. I've never been in the military, I didn't know any difference. So they started asking me questions about my past. You know, as a kid, how I felt and did I know things ahead of time? Could I feel things ahead of time? What experiences I had. Had I had any strange experiences with any type of flying craft or anything? And of course, I was going to tell them the truth. I had no reason to lie to these people. It might help me in whatever I was going to be doing or going into. So I told them the truth. And then the really interesting thing, they asked me about when I was living with my father at March Air, you know, just outside March Air Force Base. My red lights went on in my head real quick, you know, the little bells and whistles. So I turned around and said, "Well, if they've asked the question, then they already know." So I told them everything about these beams at the window situation. And I knew if I looked at their eyes when I seen them in the window, then I'd wake up in the morning. But also knew that if I hid under the covers, that I said there was a couple times I hid under my covers, believe it or not. And I kind of come back up, as long as I didn't make eye contact, it seemed to be okay. And there was 1 or 2 times when I pulled the covers down, they weren't there. It was like maybe they knew that I was in fear. I was really afraid of what was going on. I was scared. My first experiences I worked, but I explained everything in detail to them. And the more I explained in detail, the more this one guy sitting on the desk is holding his chin like this, and he's nodding, and his smile is getting wider and wider. So I turned around and go, okay, this is very interesting now. And I'm a little antsy because I'm not sure kind of what's going on, all these questions, and they should have known none of this. How did they know all this stuff about me? You know, I understand now today, but at the time it was like, wow. And they said, well, you know what, William, thank you for answering all the questions and everything, and welcome to the club, and we'll be contacting you soon. And they shook my hands, all of them went around, we shook hands. I said, well, thank you very much. If there's anything else I can do for you, let me know. And they just smiled and nodded their head and looked at Sergeant Simpson. All they did was, thanks, brother, and nodded the head. And he tapped me on the shoulder. We walked out, got in his car, and I went back to the billets, and everything was normal from there on. except for on the weekends. Sarge came and got me, and we went in other areas of the base, and I was being educated in a lot of the things there. That education, these are the first, I'll tell you, the locations. During my time in service, Fort Worth, California, and you can see Simpson here. Fort Rucker, Alabama for flight training, and that's going to be a Common 67 and 20 rotary and fixed wing mechanic. So then I was there. Simpson was involved in there on the weekends, and so a lot of times during the week I would be taken out of training, and we'd jump on aircraft and fly to Wright, Patterson, things of this nature. And I can explain more, and those are for special training courses. Jump training, things of this nature, I can explain more as we go on. And during this time at Fort Rucker, Alabama, is where the jump training, all of this stuff, and I can explain, like I said. I ended up in Viet Nam, and I also ran into Sergeant Simpson. I ended up in Canto, and that's where one of the home areas of the 5th Special Forces Group. When I got there, I ended up being augmented out as Aviation into security. And what was funny, my wife and I spent all these years of my life not getting anything from the VA, and then I turned around and went to the VA here in Northern California to get my DD-214 so I could go to the VA and start medical, things like that. And we went in there and they couldn't find a lot of my records. And I explained to them, well, this is what I did, and they started pulling records out, and I went into security. And they're going, oh, wait a minute here. And they dug a little bit further, and the guy looks up and smiles. And with my wife sitting there, and he just shuts the file, and he hands me my DD-214. And he goes, we're not going to be able to get any more of your records. You have a security clause here. And I went, okay. And he goes, look at your DD-214. And I looked at it. And on my DD-214, the locations where I were overseas, it gave a country location, but it said location within country unknown, all the way through it. And my wife and I just sat there, and she goes, wow. You know, that's the first time I've ever seen it too. So that backed up the aspect of the security. My educational programs that I was learning were remote view and advanced sensory training first. Because of my experiences in childhood with these others, as I say, and the abductions and everything, it was during that time of these type of abductions you get downloaded, I guess. That's the best way to put it. Your senses, you're able to experience things like they click on little genetic triggers. And you start to notice and feel things. My ability to hunt, track, and feel where animals were, where people were, what they were thinking, all this type of stuff really seriously increased a lot. And it's that way today. It never leaves you. It only gets more so because you use it more all the time. So that's part of the training right there. And this is all combined together right here. And they do work together. It's all the same thing. Then I went into my jump teleportation training. And which is a total body rush and mind rush, and that's just to put it lightly. And Andrew's talked a lot about how you feel doing that, and it takes some getting used to. There's no doubt about that. Then they taught me more into psychology, because they do have like psychology of chaos and distractions, and interrogation techniques. And these weren't just interrogation techniques for regular us. This is for a variety of situations and classifications, I'll say that. But the reason they did the advanced psychology of chaos and distractions is because when you have an event happen, sometimes you have to set an event in another area so you get distracted, or the forces, or shall we say, you're opposing or going against, or just trying to get, because what you have to do, maybe I have to retrieve some data, and we need people out of that area, so you create a distraction, and you can zip right in, teleport in, boom, get you what you need, get back out. This happens, people out there. It's a reality, and there is no BS about that. It is what it is. Advanced weapon systems, improvised devices. Okay, in the military, when you go in through ops training, things of this nature, you're always going to have that. They had this in Recondo School in Vietnam and everything already. I'm throwing words out there so people want to do the research. They can check things out, like Recondo School and all this. We call it education under fire in Vietnam. So these advanced weapon systems that I was running around were pulse weapon systems, pulse detonating weapon systems, antimatter weapon systems, scalar technologies. I learned a whole gamut of information and different types of weapons that I would be involved with in the future. Not just the stuff that they were teaching us about an M16 and all that, which I like the AR-15 things, and they're nice, but some of it's far beyond. These weapon systems and everything, where we reverse technology and advanced technology were given to the Defense Department and everything, and those in control, I would like to say that, because of these others, these extraterrestrial beings. As a matter of fact, some of them are dealing with the negative aspects of our government, and there's good ones out there too, so, but I won't get into that whole thing. My next training was pod setup and retrieval. And pod setup and retrieval was very interesting because I'll have to explain this, and Andrew understands this, and a lot of you should understand this. Anytime you're going to go into a new area, you go reconnoiter, this word right here. You reconnoiter an area before you do anything to make sure that it's okay. So we'd go in, we'd reconnoiter an area, then we'd take these pod systems, which are some of the first ones during the time. But they lost a lot of people, so they created something called a telesponder that you can put on yourself. So if the pod got destroyed, if you're jumping with, they could find you because they still be locked onto you when you jump, and they can bring you back. So the pod setup and jump to the location, make sure it's secure, set up the pod and everything, keep the area secure. So if we had to destroy that pod because of who knows whatever reasons, then we still have our telesponders and nobody else would get hurt. We could be pulled back. But so we set up the pod so other people could jump there, other technicians, other scientists, other security personnel, and that's what we did. So that training was pretty simple systems. We always had a technician with us, but if the technician got hit, we knew all we had to do was go through a sequence of things that he had in his book, and they taught us that, and we could activate these and get more people there, or we could hit a button and have that thing taken right back out. They could take us out. Extraction and reconnoitering and drop training from orbit. The flight training, drop training is kind of together because we're not talking flight training on helicopters and things like that, which I love. Put me underneath a helicopter hanging upside down by a rope, and I'm happy. That's some good place. But I turned around, and during this training, it was interesting because some of their craft that they have, these advanced craft, saucer craft, tube craft, everything else, they had dampening fields. So when you entered a planetary atmosphere, you really didn't feel it. It was like a field inside of a field. I can get into more propulsion ideas and everything, help you understand that a little later on when I talk about craft. I want you to understand right now, my first jumps to Mars and things of this nature were by craft, not by teleportation. So I'll get that out front right now. But the other ships that we were going through the drop training didn't have those dampening fields. And as this says on a show that I used to watch, this One-Way Express, elevator to hell in a sense, the feeling you get when you're coming in atmosphere at speed quickly to get down to the surface so you won't get hit by whatever weaponry they might have. And usually you come down with several drop ships and you can disperse them quickly. You can be teleported as well, but we had to go through that type of training in case they weren't able to use a teleportation pod, we weren't able to get into an area. And this is with the flight training. Extractions and reconnoitering, they were for several different things. Okay, these are my operational time teleportation jumps. These are the reasons we did it. VIP security, which is with Andrew. Situations like that, we know that VIPs were coming up and we either had to train them before, they made their jumps, so they would understand that when you come onto the Martian surface or wherever you jump, that could be anywhere on the planet, in case something happened, you know how to defend yourself to a point with weapons, with martial arts. And that's where I trained martial in a form of martial arts and self-defense. A lot of stuff was unorthodox, special fighting techniques that you just don't learn everywhere. And the jump location setup and security, I pretty much already covered that. The things that I really enjoyed doing was the scientific excursions because I just absorbed information, and I still do. I have to know more. I study every single day. I know physics, I know so many other different science aspects, biologies, but I never learned them in school. These are aspects that we believe we call downloading. When you're with the others, they give you all this information. And with the MyLab information in situations too. I was never tortured or anything, but if you want to call the abductions in the first aspects when I was scared and all that, I guess you could say because I was scared to death and everything, but only after a long period of time of dealing with these beings, there really wasn't a fear there anymore. I knew those little suckers, little grays you had to watch. And those are the ones that I pretty much more than anything else as time went on. There was a man-to-type situation, but that's different. We'll talk about that later. Scientific excursions, that could be anywhere. It could be on Earth. It could be a future event, a past event, which I'll talk about in a minute, or on Earth or Mars. And we'll be talking about that. Retrieval and extraction was always retrieval of several things. Intel, personnel, or technology. Those are the things we needed to do. And if we were extracting personnel, usually it was a pretty heated situation. Now, I already talked about reconnoitering operations, going into an area and checking it out before you go in. But also there's conflict interdiction. And if we knew that there was, visitor craft, shall we say, bad guys coming into an area or things we couldn't trust because of our bases on Mars, two stations, space stations that are in space, one in between Mars and Earth, and the other one out there not too far from Jupiter, in between Mars and Jupiter area. You had derelict craft, things of this nature. You had to turn around and really be on your toes. Now, just like in real combat, you're not out there battling all the time. It isn't that way. It doesn't matter what anybody says out there. But just like in combat, all of a sudden you would have a situation you need to take care of. And if you couldn't diplomatically take care of it, that's what we'd be conflict interdiction. They'd ship us on into that area and everything. We could call up all the backup we wanted. And that's when you call up in the extra ships, the extra personnel and things like this. Always try to negotiate things, but some things you couldn't negotiate. You just had to show a stand of force. And really, it's my stuff is better than yours at that point. And a lot of conflicts. There was people lost, there was lives lost, things of this nature. But we took a bite out of them too at times, which was a good feeling, real darn good feeling. Okay, training jump participants. I put this in just by itself because this kind of whole different thing here. After all this training and everything I went to, and I experienced the time aspect and the teleportation jumps and everything, I was just good at what I did. So we want you, Uncle Sam, on the poster. We want you, and next thing I know, I'm training, and right here in California. And I met Andrew in the 70s, early 70s, and trained him for his martial arts for his jump to Mars. And then in the 80s, I think it was 84, 83, something like that time period, that I turned around and I was his security when he turned around and jumped to Mars. Now my thing in training was to teach him how to survive. I taught weapons, I taught also about different aspects of these beings, which being would act certain ways, which ones you could deal with, and what other ones you just didn't trust and you stayed within your group, call it the buddy plan. You never were alone. So Andrew's experience up there when we stepped out of the bunker areas from underground and got on the surface is a true event. Yes, we did have a conflict with the pterodactyl type creatures. Unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because I don't like anything to be hunted to an extinction, but these creatures were a serious problem, and you didn't know if they were coming down behind you anyway. So there was a standing order on these things. If you seen them, take them out. Didn't matter where they were or what they were. So from what I hear now, from a few other individuals that I know, one in particular, these things no longer exist up there. But there are life forms up there. We will get into that as time goes on. My teleportation jumps and everything were very interesting. My first training teleportation jumps was Fort Ord El Segundo, which really kind of blew me away because when Andrew talked about his El Segundo, I'm at the edge of my seat when I first, and I never listened to any Andrew's and Bishago stuff until he met me here on my property. And then I turned around and listened. I knew who he was. I really didn't know what he was doing out there because, like I said, I backed away from everything when I left the programs. There was a reason when I left the program. You never really leave the program. I've been following Washington all my life, even up here where I live now. Too many witnesses to that fact. My non-training jumps and started El Segundo to College of Siskiyous, which was another very interesting thing about what Andrew was talking about. We went there to be explained a lot of things about different type of life forms that were on Mars, things of this nature. And sometimes you see what they're talking about, sometimes you don't see what they're talking about. And so that's part of the education aspect. And then from El Segundo to Wright, Patterson Air Force Base, where we learned a whole lot more about these non-terrestrial beings and these non-dimensional beings, you know, not from our dimension, interdimensional beings, I guess you would say. And we were taught every aspect of them, what we could trust, what we couldn't trust, how we interact with them. We understood the telepathic aspect, and we could think back to them, and pretty soon you could carry on conversations with them with no verbalness at all. As a matter of fact, it's kind of those things you do with your animals. With me, I can look at mine, and they know exactly what I need done, and they just do it. It's a telepathic thing. When I was at Wright Patterson Air Force Base, I met a lot of people, and that's where I was also told that I was chosen by a physicist out of Los Alamos Laboratory. They never told me exactly who it was. I have an idea and everything, but they never told me exactly who it was. And I even got a letter to the fact on rice paper, so it could be destroyed. And my wife and I read it, and I said, we torch that thing real quick. And so that was part of the training aspect too. But then we went from Wright Patterson to Edwards Air Force Base, where we jumped to Mars on my first jump and everything. So Wright Patterson to Mars, Edwards Air Force Base to Mars, those were your normal jumps. Also, I jumped from ship to ship and ship to planetary service back and forth. Not only was it training, but this is what, you know, how we did things. The only two areas that I jumped off planet to Mars was Wright Patterson Air Force Base and Edwards Air Force Base. I'd been to other areas, the Area 51 complex, and things like this, S4, blah, blah, blah. And they'll say, but I'm not really talking about those here, because I'm just basically talking about the technologies of jumping, both time, both teleportation and interaction in programs that I had interacted with. Okay, my time jumps, and this is where I'll get into a little more detail. Time jumps, you know, I enjoyed them, I knew what it was doing, but they bothered me in several ways, because I got a chance to see the Earth in the future. I got a chance to see Mars' past situation, what happened to that planet. Now knowing where we're headed right now, I put a lot of this stuff together and see, you know, oh my God, it's one of them oh my God moments and everything. So we'll get right into that right here. I'll talk about Mars first. Now, I've been to Mars several times and seen the structures, and I'll show more of this in real life on Mars as we go on, but my first jump in time on Mars was there, at one of the complexes, underground complexes, and we jumped in the past. And one of the things that the scientist told me was that when we're there, if I'm going to jump to a future past event on Earth, I got to be on Earth. If I'm going to jump to a future past event on Mars, I got to be on Mars. You know, so, and I don't know the technicalities of that. They do. And I trusted my technicians, that's 100%. If we had a technician on our team, we watched over his behind real good, you know. And as time went on with the teleportation and things like this, we didn't need the telesponders. In time, they had a transponder. It's kind of like a telesponder. And so when you jump forward, they can bring you back in the time-space continuum. That's another technical aspect I don't know a lot about, but it works very, very well. Now they can jump back and forth, but a lot of times when they do that, military personnel, operations personnel still carry one of these things on them, just in case something happens to, shall we say, the base location of your jump. They can have another one go somewhere else and pull you back out. 11,500 to 15,000 years ago is when the jump was back to, and that's what I was informed of. Well, we went back to this, and it was a scientific jump to retrieve data and information of that time period. The scientists, when we jumped back to that time period, went straight to work doing what they were doing. And we had a team of 7 individuals that was with them. And that was the team that I was in charge of at that time. So we turned around and guarded these people, but what I seen was unbelievable. It was Mars just when it was losing its atmosphere. Things of this nature were happening bad. It was massive destruction. There was intermediate things coming from the sky, meteor slamming the planet. That still had part of an ocean. It was dissipating. There was oxygen content still on the planet at a higher aspect than it is today. And we'll get into that too. But I was watching, there was a war going on. There was a battle going on. And what was very interesting about this is during my time growing up, I remember a battle on another world that I was involved in. And basically, I think what I was being doing is taken back to this exact time period when we were taking place, and talked to a few individuals that are very well known in their ability to see things of other people's lives and what they went to. You know, people like to call some people psychics. I don't like to use the word because these abilities we all have, they're innate in all of us. Some people just develop them further and more because they had the chance to have solitude, not through the games, the TV and everything. And Wizard, this one's for you out there. He's seen the same thing before I ever told him anything about any programs. I never talked to him about this stuff. And he was able to see exactly what I was seeing on Mars at this time. There was mass chaos going on. There was a battle going on 2 different sides. It was control of what was left of Mars at that time. And a lot of people dying, a lot of destruction of the buildings. The atmosphere was in turmoil. Lightning strikes, meteor strikes, incoming rod penetrations. What I'm talking about there is the technologies, and some of the stuff I talk about. Rods are, you know, you have 5 or 6 ton devices, either kinetic devices, and they just can take a meteor or whatever and steer it in a direction. You know, small ones, rocks, whatever, and direct them in a particular form. And well, they had titanium and other metals, things like this, these rods that they would just fire, and using railgun technology, and they fired at a particular location on the planet, and that would take those locations out. Very devastating technology they had there. We spent, I would say, about 6 hours in that particular event, and I looked around and I noticed a lot of the architecture was, you know, huge. Everything was made to last thousands of years. And I understand this now because I understand part of what we were dealing with is, and Billy Carson talks about this, and I know that for sure. It was Anunnaki technology, and Anunnakis were dealing with part of this genetic stream, shall we say. And they used Mars at one time as a way station, shall we say, and the moon too. That's why you see a lot of structures. But these beings also lived extremely long periods of times. And if you ever get into the 14 texts that they have, the cylinder deals that they have, and listen to it and understand, it talks about the creation theory of man. I advise everybody, you better go do that. Your eyes are going to be wide awake, and you're going to see what's going on here. So a lot of the structures and everything, if you're living, their expanded lifetimes were millennia. It take 36,000 years just for the aspect of Nibiru to come into our system. You know, be close enough where they could jump to Earth. And they needed resources and things and all types of stuff like this. So they came here looking for resources. And it goes into the creation aspect, but I'll leave that for a different time. Things were getting really bad on Mars, and all of a sudden started getting close to where we were. So I turned around and round everybody up and says, okay, we're going to hunker down and get out of here now, you know, because it was starting to get worse. And plus on top of that, it was going into nighttime. And I always like to be in at night, you know, especially during these types of situations. If I'm in a jungle and combat out there where I can go out and do what I need to do, fine, put me out there, have no problem. But if I'm just being bombarded and watching the chaos and keeping a team secure, when I say time is here, the security is being breached, we need to go, we went. And they were gathering all types of information, taking pictures and video full. I'd like to know where that footage is now. It's very important that people understand that there's a lot more to the human race than just what we see on the planet. But I will say that past civilizations are attached to the Martian civilizations. From that point on, there was a couple of jumps back to the past on Mars, and then after we'd come back, I'd look at Mars sitting on base and looking at these underground complexes we were in, and all the little surface spaces that we have up there, and going, wow, you know. And then when you come back to Earth, you look at Earth, and you see what's going on, and you're going, wow, because you see a lot of things happening here that would basically have the planetary things go through cycles. Unfortunately, what we've done here is enhance those cycles. My first jumps in time, and this was during training, was back to the first nuclear test blast at Trinity. And I was amazed at seeing that thing. It was just totally amazing seeing a nuclear explosion. of that magnitude. And even then, they didn't know what it was going to do to the atmosphere. It could have went chaotic and bring the whole planet up. Nobody knew at that time. But that was just to show me, and I understood that this was beginning. This is why there was starting to be a lot more interaction between the others, these extraterrestrials, and human society. What was going on. We've had a lot of things with these craft. Perfect example, Elon Musk. One of his last rockets that went up was a perfect example of a craft coming up. It was two craft actually. Coming up, and all of a sudden that rocket started to lift off. And it didn't blow down by the engines, it blew right up near the top. It blew that whole thing off his launch pad. It was gone. Facts are the secret space program that is going on off there is totally separate from NASA. The program you see going out there right now is a horse and pony show for you guys. Because those technologies that they are telling you about, everything scientists that they're saying, one day we'll turn around and create an event already there. They're far beyond anything we can think of. They're well over 200, 250 years in excess technology of us. The second thing I've seen was the Kennedy assassination. And the Kennedy assassination bothered me. That's when I really, really in my heart knew that we were going to have a battle here because of the negative aspects of these visitors on certain aspects of humanity, those in control now. We're starting to wake up and be able to understand what's going on and break away from that. But it goes very deep, and it is off-world. Yes, there is a breakaway society. The Kennedy assassination bothered me because I was looking at it from a point of view where I seen the parade at Kennedy and all the people, yeah, and everybody clapping. And he turned and he made it into the Plaza Square, where there really wasn't a lot of people there. Where the book depository, there's other buildings here, there's the highway and the knoll and all this. And he's coming out of the shadows. That's was the interesting thing. He's coming out of the shadows and everything, and there's a Secret Service agent, as there always is, getting ready to jump on the car. And he's called back, and he turned around and threw his arms up in the air, and it's like, and within a few seconds after that, bam, 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 you heard the shots go off. And I'm going to tell you, I'm pretty good with weapons, and I was well didn't do it alone. And that's a whole other story, and I know the whole aspect of that, what was going on because of other things I know within the programs. But Kennedy was assassinated for two reasons, basically. It was because he was going to talk about UFOs. A couple of weeks before that, he went to get everything he could find about UFOs and our contact with them and the society, and also change the Reserve, Federal Reserve. So there's two things that happened. But when I seen that, I knew immediately that I couldn't trust certain aspects of our government anymore. So that made me kind of within the programs at time. But I was still young, still full of adrenaline and tenacity and stuff, and I went on. The next jumps I took, excuse me, get a drink of water here, was in the Middle Eastern areas. Southwest United States, East Coast, planet equatorial regions. We made jumps in the future in 2045 and in 2055. 2045 things are bad, but by 2055 on that, there was future jumps on that. And this is all for scientific investigation. We were just a security for that. Pretty devastating, changed my life. And positive for the positive and for, oh my God. I don't care what anybody says out there. Politicians, I don't care about any of that. Our planet's going through some times right now, and it's going to continue on unless we change our ways fast. The technology we have right now, the NASA space program and the scientists on the Earth are the lower levels of what's going on. Breakaway Society has all of the top radical technologies. We have to catch up here. We have to do it in a hurry. We've got to put religions and all this other angers and races and everything aside and become a human species, and we will never be helped by those out there who can help us. I want to tell you that right now. I know that for a certainty. A lot of people saying that people are going to come down and help us. They're not going to help us until they see us as a humanity, as a species, take that next step to help ourselves. And I see that starting to happen out there now. This gives me lots and lots of hope. But when I jumped into the future and everything, I'll tell you about the Middle East first. There was almost nobody there. The heat had increased to the point there had been wars, everything was going crazy in there. in those areas right there. Mass migrations out of those areas going, to the northern regions, the southern regions, getting out of those areas, going more to the coastlines and things like that. Even the coastlines coming up. There was lots of CO2, but there was almost more methane, things of this. And I get this because I'm asking the scientists what this all about as they're out there taking their samples. Usually when we took a team of scientists, it was in between. It could be 6 scientists, it could be 3 scientists, independent. The maximum we ever took was 7. And so we're over the Middle East, we're checking things out, and we land there taking their samples and everything. And I was watching, we tuned into their casts and everything. They're, shall we say, it's past the internet at that point, and it's far beyond that in communications. But I was looking at all their media, and they were having the food shortages and all this type of stuff, everywhere. Some governments are totally gone and changed. It was really wicked. That Middle East just went haywire. And you watch that place, it's haywire right now. But we got a chance, things are starting to change. I've heard inside the programs that we do have some hope here. But we do have to get on the environmental aspect. The next was the Southwest. I've seen an 80 to 90 year drought going all the way from like Georgia area, all the way across the United States, up in the southern area of California here, and on up to where I live in Northern California, but mainly the central area and the Southwest and all across. And then right down straight to the middle of the United States, just that side of the Rocky Mountains, dry, all dry area. And there was a lot of cities in the deserts and everything. They were just nowhere, they were abandoned. And people had moved inland more so. And the reason they did that because of rising sea levels and other aspects, a lot of cities just couldn't be taken care of anymore in these deserts, regions and things of that. So there was a lot of mass migration of human population and animals and insects and things like this. There was a couple of plagues that took place, from what they say from their findings, things of this nature before the year 2045, and I see the devastation and damage from that. And those are man-made caused laboratory situations, which we're seeing with a lot of stuff right now, bird flu, all that. East Coast, New York and all of that, everything was moved inland. And the water got quite high. And the whole capital situation had been moved. They're getting ready, and they're talking about Denver, Colorado was set up. And when I was there in Denver, Colorado, Dr. Deagle, Bill Deagle, and myself had been in the underground complex at Colorado there under the airport. It's massive. It is massive. And that is for the end times. And those elites are trying to push the issue to get that 0.2 there for massive population, depopulation, things of this nature. But the East Coast is all underwater, quite a ways up. Everything of the United States changed as it did the rest of the planet, with waters being high, temperatures are extremely high. The life in the oceans and everything was pretty well. There was no fishing industries at that point, nothing whatsoever. The oceans had pretty well died off. The North Atlantic current had almost completely stopped. So weather periods were going really, the growing areas and everything were towards the northern part of the planet, caps and everything of this nature. This jump technology to have time travel, regular teleportation, allowed us to see so many things and experience so many things. It was literally unbelievable. And I'm glad I've seen all these things. I'm glad I've seen what was happening with the planet. Because after all the experience and all this, now people can understand why I decided to become a shaman. After all this stuff is over, I use my abilities, my innate abilities and things that I know, and the things I know from the program and everything to help people heal themselves and understand exactly what we humans are. People better start waking up to that fact, because it's a solid reality, a reality that most people don't want to face. Okay, like I said before, the jumps took place and everything. I used craft. Everybody knows about the TR-3B and the TRB and Aurora and the Manta. There's other craft that we have out there. And so this kind that I'm going to show you a little clip. And I'm just going to say something when that clip is going, just to make you think. Now, these are photos during World War II in Nazi Germany, this here. And I do not know if this bottom picture is real. I can't say it is. but I do know that these other two, from the sources that I have, are on the money about what's going on. So I'm going to take this moment here and I'm going to come out of the presentation. I'm going to go to a quick video, real quick here. So I'm going to jump out and I'm going to go straight to this video. Jump back here and play it for you. This was in 1939. I know a lot of you have probably already seen it. And this is in Germany. And this was the test of their Bell technology. Now they'll slow it down and zoom it in and everything. And I want you to watch close. And as I was doing this, I want you all to think about one thing. If we had these technologies then, and after World War II ended, and we had Operation Paperclip, and got these scientists and everybody in the United States, and started getting them in our labs, Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, Los Alamos, Tennessee, there was other labs going there, Plum Island, all of this type of stuff. We all know. You can see this craft also, it has an aspect of it that's spinning. And it's very interesting. Right here, as it comes out. You'll see it wobble a little bit. And this is a gyro aspect of it. And spinning comes up and lands again. Okay? Right now, some of the craft that we're seeing out there right now are ours, as far as they're trying to get a craft, and some are. Some of these cloak craft that people are seeing out there in orbit around our planet and everything are ours. Not all of them are ours. Some of them are ours. This is one that's on the face of Mars. But these craft are very, very advanced. Some of them are battle craft. Some of them are harvesters. Excuse me. Some of them are drop ships. Some of them are, we're going between the stations. The tube ones and everything we call transports. These are hauling supplies and people, and these have work capability. A lot of these things, you don't travel at the speed of light, you jump around it. And the first laws of the theory of relativity, some of the aspects of the original laws of relativity that Einstein was talking about, it tells you straight up that you can do this. You don't have to travel at the speed of light, you jump around it. You go from location to location, it bends by space and time. We've had that technology for a long time. Mars, it's home. I always had this thing, and I have to attribute it to memory, as I believe genetic memory. We have several different types of memory. We have spiritual memory. We have the memory of this life that we're living now. And then we have genetic memory of all, not only us, our ancestors. Scientists are proving this now. And you can touch in to all these memories. So because of my enhancements and everything, and I believe a lot of people, if you've been inducted, you've got enhancements. That's just the way it is. It's a reality. And it's okay. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have to evolve. It's just the way it is. So all these young life experiences and everything that I told you in the craft, of seeing Earth disappear and seeing Mars, I've always had this feeling of home, to be honest with you. I don't look really at the Earth as being my total first home. It's like I was placed here. And I think there's a lot of us out there that feel that way. I live here, I function here, got my family in it, love the planet and everything just like everybody else. But when nighttime comes and I look up at them stars, and I've told my wife many times, come get me. I'm ready, come get me. Because living here is not as exciting. Not the same adrenaline rush, maybe that's the word. Now, this is a picture, NASA's picture of Mars here on the right-hand side. And this is a picture over here of an amateur astronomer's photo of Mars. And I love using these ones right here because you can see right here, and I'll get my little marking pen here, right, a small layer. That's atmosphere. If you look at Earth, you're going to see the same thing. And there's no difference. This one just has less oxygen. And look at the contours, look at everything. It's very interesting. Now, the interesting thing the scientists are finally realizing, they're finally releasing, and the reason they're releasing that is because a lot of people are coming out and talking, and they're saying what's going on about you can breathe on Mars. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you something, and then I'll leave the decision on if these photos to you were real or not. But right now, we're just talking about this aspect. And here's a new methane release. This is northern center of Mars right here. And I don't know how many of you have seen these pictures, but this is very important because in this picture right here, this area that you're looking at is the green part and everything that you'll see down here in the picture after. So all this right here that you see, now move that down towards the bottom and that'll make the next picture. But this shows you methane. Where does methane come from? You know, the first thing that comes to my mind is one of the Thunderdome. Methane cometh from pig waste. Okay, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Basically, that in my head is saying it comes from natural processes, microorganisms, plant life, you know, cattle, other types of life like that. And we're going to show you some things about that. I want everybody to understand there has been a civilization on Mars. I want to show you fossil records. There is life on Mars right now, and Mars is being terraformed. And I can show you this and prove that to become once again a planet for us. And I've talked to everybody about this. I think Lewis and Thomas, Thomas Jensen there, and also Billy. It was Mikey, excuse me, and then Billy also. I talked to him about this, about the terraforming operations and stuff that, you know, about Earth and all this. And this is happening to Mars again, I'm going to be honest with you. And a comet just went by Mars not too long ago, a couple of years ago maybe, and just skimmed the atmosphere of Mars, which dumped a lot more organic compounds in there. And now all of a sudden we have this. Okay, here's Mars, what it would look like with its ocean and everything. Now notice that green, it's right down here where all the land is. And so we know that methane is there. I've been on Mars. I've been there and breathed without a breathing apparatus. I had it with me. You cannot breathe long periods of times without a breathing apparatus, but I imagine now that that's going to be a lot more easier as time goes on. Are we there? Yes, we are 100%. I'm going to talk about the fossils. And there's a few websites that we're going to find these on, and I want to give my thanks to those websites for having these particular pictures and everything, because they're very instrumental in getting people to understand what's really going on out there. This cyborg humanoid type creature, you know, robotic aspect. Now this is found on the surface of Mars. I know a lot of you have probably seen this, but really look at it good and everything, and understand that this is real. This isn't Photoshop. This is just a bunch of stuff that's put there. But these are real things on Mars. And you always talk about me, I do, the first aspects that you see when you go. When I first ended up on Mars, I've seen a few things on Mars, like these caterpillar type things, and I'll show you later on, and a few other things. Animals like cattle in a sense, but you know, it's more of the prehistoric type creatures also, but a lot of them are no longer in existence. They're fossils, shall we say now. Anything that was bothering those programs up there, they took care of it. So here we have this right here, and just notice the eyes and everything. Obviously, camera type situation. Out of the eyes, I would say, here's some fossils. And these are fossils remnant of birds. So this kind of backs up what Andrew was saying. I'll show you something here shortly. These are like ostrich heads and things of this nature, dodo bird type situations too. But the fact of just seeing these things on the surface of Mars tells you right off the top that there was past life on Mars. What is really funny is all of our ancient records show that. The ancient Egyptians and everything show craft. They show the beans and everything else. And I have one of those here shortly. I just kind of threw it in there so you can see it and everything. But here's fossil evidence. Now here's other fossil evidence. This is what Rover took, excuse me. Okay, everybody can see this. This is a definite skull, humanoid skull. No getting around it. And like I said, I don't know the pictures that the other presenter showed you or anything, so forgive me if some of these repeats that I was got together and talked. Really, and that's a good thing. We don't want us all saying the same thing because that shows too much of a story. Now that skull right there is different than this skull right here, obviously. So we're showing another species right off the top. Right off the top. And notice it's buried, a lot of destruction. But one thing I want to talk about, elongated skull. This is not just regular human skull. But all the facial aspects of it is. So that shows you hybridization. Now this picture I want to talk about for a second here, because I noticed something that nobody else has ever noticed. I know a lot of you might think just bones laying on the surface there of Mars. Okay, we always seen plenty of evidence of bones and stuff like that, but this one's been moved. This used to be up here. See the curvature right here? You know, you lay something in the dirt, cover it, and then you pick it back up, and it leaves little ridges around where it was. This bone was laying up here, this was up here, and this was down here, because you can see it right in this area. This is part of this right here, and this right here, how it comes in, it comes out, goes like that. This was right up against here. Interesting situation. My question is, who moved it? Right here you have some bone, you have another broken piece off of it here, this rock's laying on the other aspect of it up here. Now, there's also something else going on here. Besides the fact that who moved it, this is a rover picture. Could the rover reach out, pick it up and move it, and set it down? We have to ask ourselves that. I'm going to show you something in this picture nobody else has ever recognized. If you've been in the military and an ops and everything where you hunt, you know what a standard operations blueprint is, a military site blueprint. Once you look here, you see ridges. Comes right around the toe, and ridges right around here. I believe, my friends, this right here is a blueprint. This right here is maybe when this got moved, dropped down on it, something, I don't know. But they're covering up a blueprint right here. I really believe that, because that is the same standard blueprint that we had in our boots when we were there and do all of our training. Very interesting indeed. Once you look at that real close, you get your chance. When this conference is over, go really check this type of stuff out. A blueprint means one thing, what? Somebody walking on the surface. Now also, this is about the past, you know. Here's an old structure, you got a door down here. I'll just aim at it. And you have straight sides here, you can tell it goes back. And a roof structure, there's been, you know, caving kind of on it. My interesting thing here in these pictures is you see this has like been graded out. Now, when you have streams, of course, they make sides and everything. But obviously, this isn't a stream. And you can see right along here that it's been graded out. This has been a long time ago. You can see very similar thing in this nature. And so I believe in a bigger picture of this, we would see a lot more structure around it. But when I see things like this, you work in construction, and you look at stuff like this, you go, wow. You know, I can go out in my field out here right now and look at a place that's 25 years old and see things exactly like this right here. And obviously this is a very famous one right here. A lot of things that people don't look at is right over here at this cave. You can see that something's been pushed out. You know how gophers and things push things out? Is that possibly that's what happened there with some of these creatures, because they do live and burrow underground? That's exactly what that is. And I can tell you that from experience. This right here is obviously man-made, you know, intelligently made, I will say that. And over here you can also see block structure. There was a building structure over here. So I don't know a whole lot about this particular picture, where it came from. My only thing, it looks like it's pretty well armored down. So I would say it also had to do something with the defense line or something like that. Now, I always talk about, you know, the connection between Earth and Mars and everything, and here's something, when I found this, I got the biggest smile on my face that I could dream of. This, to me, has a direct connection with Earth, and not only does it have a direct connection with Earth, but it has a direct connection with the Anunnaki as well. I can't talk about that enough. There are people in the program on this particular conference that do talk more about that. But here we have an Ankh. Why is an Ankh there? Really? The only reason an Ankh would be there is that there was people who were following that particular belief system, or this meant something to them. And here it is laying on the ground right now. And this is on Mars. All these pictures on Mars, none of these are on Earth. And but I could take a picture of an Ankh and put it right next to it, and you know it was that. Anybody studying research knows that. Okay, now, this particular picture is, a lot of people seen it, but I know what this is. There's one of these here and another one of these here. These is a weapon systems, but scientists use these. They walk around this type of terrain, wheeled or track vehicle on this type of terrain. It doesn't work. You know, so this is one of the advanced pieces of equipment that is there. But this one actually right here is functioning. This one is not broke down in any way, shape, or form. This is a functioning piece of equipment that I know is on Mars because I've seen them there. And this is very important for people to understand. We've been lied to so much, it's unbelievable. Another aspect, we have the Ankh. And I like this one, and probably every single person in this conference put this one up. But it is really an essential picture in what we're doing because it shows the connection between Mars and Earth. And we have to have this connection because understanding this connection means we understand who we humans are and what we are. And the problem with most humanity out there, they don't want to accept the facts. What's wrong with accepting the fact that maybe part of this, our mind has been designed and we're part of them and they're part of us, you know. I can't say that enough. We have a pyramidal structure right here, and I believe like that most people, this is the tip of that proverbial iceberg. You know, I'd like to see the larger picture of things around. Excuse me, I need more coffee. This is also, this one's on Mars, this one here, and this one's on Earth. Now, between the pyramid, between the Ankh, now you see this and they see hieroglyphics here. This is much older, I believe, this picture, I know it is, than this here on Earth, because this pre-exists that by millennia. You notice the way that they carved everything out here. It might have been some type of hieroglyphic here, carved down here. It's cut exactly the same like this one right here, around this structure. Also, they got the same lines over here. There are other pictures of this, but this one I wanted to pull up because it shows you the deterioration. Same head type shape, same eyes, same nose and facial features, all the way down a waistline. And this is like the Egyptians always wore, the deal around their shoulders, like a giant necklace type situation there. The arm comes down, this side of the arm comes down, here's the wrist area. And you can see the same wall here, over here, that goes up. It's the same thing, built by the same people, same beings. You can bank on it. Don't listen to NASA or any of these people anymore out there. They're just trying to pull the wool over your eyes. It's all covert. It's all smoke and mirrors. Okay, now I'm going to show you a few structures here. And this is a very, very hardened structure. It's for radiation, things of this nature. What's really interesting here is it's like you got a line here, and a line here, and a line here. It was kind of like a bunker type situation. But there's been a lot of devastation here. You can see that this here was also something, and you have two lines here. But this bunker complex is very interesting. One thing I noticed here, right here in this thing, there's a darker area, and that's always a sign of moisture. So the time that this picture was taken, obviously, is during the day. And on Mars, during the day, your temperature is right around 68 degrees to 74, 75, 76 at the most. Nighttime is when the temperatures drop to plus 200 degrees minus. It means below zero. And that's survivable. We do that here in the United States, Mount Washington. It's got a temperature of 200 degrees. They got their structures out there, we handle it. Antarctica, we can handle it there. So the aspects of being able to live on Mars, it is highly possible as far as environmental goes. It doesn't matter if there's more CO2, we got oxygen generators. A simple hydrogen generator creates, you take water and you can create hydrogen, create oxygen. So having this on the surface of Mars is not a problem, especially if you're at the poles. You have all the power and everything you need right there. You don't have to ship it in. You use the resources. That's why I talked about the harvester ships and everything. We've got a couple of them. There was only two that I knew of. But you didn't have to come to Earth to get certain necessary things like the hydrogen, this, that. They can land anywhere they want, get the resources on a planetary surface without having to come to Earth to get it. But a lot of resources are created, things are made, and then are shipped out. That's what's going on there. Here's another part structure. Notice this, it's a pretty good size and it rounds off. So this was more, but this is not being used. We're not using this right now, but it was part of the earlier structures, one of ours. Now here I want to show you this crash site on Mars. You can obviously see the ship. It plowed in pretty heavy, but what's interesting is you have two lines here, and you have another ship or something under it. This is just not a slide mark. This is a structure, this is something. And I've looked at it many times and really haven't come to any conclusion. But the very interesting thing is this is here, and they were put in after this craft went this way. So it's come to be and build up so they can bring things across, salvage. There's a possibility. Now, I told you I had some pictures of the other stuff in Egypt and everywhere else in Samaria and all over the place. It's funny that the craft that we see in our skies now resemble, here you go, craft portholes. In Egypt, you see the other one with the helicopters and things like that. I've talked to that with Billy Carson, and there's something that I realized right off the top, that we're both talking about the same type of situation, the technologies, all that type of stuff that are going on. This craft is showing beam weaponry going down, all that. Also shows different things right here, and I see tentacles kind of coming out here. And this is interesting because some of my pictures of the life forms on Mars talk about that. Another interesting thing here is this. The sign of a resistor goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up. So that's very similar in electronics to a sign of a resistor. I'm not saying that that's what that is. It could be representing mountain ranges, but I just seen that one. Interesting. So we have showing technologies being something and destroying something here. We have here we go right there again. So, and here's the creature. This is very similar to the creatures that all of us have seen off and on in these craft. Very well. I really like the way they put this. This isn't just a typical gray. This is a totally different aspect of gray. And the thing about the cloning and the genetic manipulation they do, that is normal for them to do. And part of the reason that they're dealing with this is because of the breeding programs and keeping themselves alive. If you're in space too long, radiation and things like that really take your way to reproduce. The only way to turn around and reproduce is by cloning and genetic manipulation. Taking some of this and some of that and everything, mixing them together. And once again, like I said, go back to the Anunnaki tablets and the 14 tablets, the creation theory and stuff of this nature, and you'll understand a whole lot about when they talk about unicorns and different things of this nature. I cannot stress that enough. You're going to fall in love with that particular aspect of it. You can go to YouTube and check it out. Okay, they talk about life on Mars. We're going to talk about that right now. Then I'm going to talk about the weapons after that, and then something else after that. Water on Mars, life on Mars, yeah, guaranteed. Not only is the rover showing you, not only is the orbiter showing you, this is a great picture of the orbiter. These are froze over lakes. Iced over, you can tell. This is ice, almost can see kind of reflections here. And you can tell the different layers of your ice. Just like if you went to any lake up in the mountains during the winter time, it freezes over. You can see this 100% right here. Also on top of that, you look at like these are trees. Imagine that. We've got frozen lakes of trees on Mars. No, okay. If there's no oxygen, and there's no life on Mars, what is it doing here? Plant life, and here uses more CO2, but all plant life uses an aspect of oxygen. The plant life on the Earth right now, when it gets to like 100-something degrees, they stop using CO2, and they start using oxygen. So as our planetary atmosphere increases in its warmth, there is going to become a day when what happens with our planet is everything's going to be using oxygen. Unfortunately, right now, the oxygen content from 1994 to the year 2000 on Earth dropped by 0.20%. That means that our oceans and our trees and everything aren't producing enough oxygen. We're starting to lose it. Think about the breakaway programs. Think of why they're hiding these programs and why we're spending a lot of times on Mars up there, and people like me were going in and out of these programs. They're getting ready for a major event to take place on Earth. But they know it, a lot of people don't. Here's another phase. You can see this right here. And this is on Mars. I personally have not seen this, but I've seen many other ones. And they were very Egyptian culture-like, very Incan, Mayan. Eyebrow, eyeballs, eyelids, you know, cheeks, nose, mouth, and it's straightened out over here. You can see this one here. But this one right here, you get a good chance to see both sides, ears, everything else, very humanoid in appearance. And here's it buried in the ground, laying sideways. Also around this one, there's other ones if you see the whole picture, but this is a really good one that you can see. Another standing water, this is not frozen. And you can actually see the little wave action on the side. The question is, why is there wave action? That means something hit that water. You can also see things under the water here. And you can see this is up where there's snow and things of that nature. Okay, so the fact that is there water on Mars? You betcha. Have they been lying? You betcha. Now, as far as the life, we have a lot of caterpillar type things on, and slugs and everything. This is one of those types. You can see the antenna, shadow. Here you can see the shadow under it. And I was just watching a National Geographic special that showed some of our caterpillar situations exactly like this right here. You know, and very, very, very similar, facsimile. So the fact is that, and you can kind of see maybe it come from this way. You can see a little trail, or maybe this way, I'm not sure. But the fact is, there it is. It is a true life form. It is alive.
William, thank you very much. I guess we're going to have to conclude your part, if that's all right with you.
Oh, that is fantastic. I understand that.
I mean, it was an excellent presentation. Everybody really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we're going to, next up, we're going to have Thomas come up.